And thank you very much, Randy. Let's go to our callers. First up is Tim. He's listening in Keller, Texas, on the web. Hi, Tim.
Hey, Hank. My question would be, I was having a debate with a friend, and if I was basically saying, if you believe, and this isn't whether assurance of salvation is true, it's just what it implies. If you believe that you are, you're once saved, always saved, does this mean that your free will no longer exists afterwards?
Well, I don't think that you can pour any kind of meaning like that into proper Christian theology, because I think that proper Christian theology is a theology in which we have the ability to act or to act otherwise. So we can either love the grace of God or spurn the grace of God. And the book of Hebrews actually has a warning that there were Jews who, like Judas, tasted God's goodness and yet turned from his grace. And that is a sober warning. And it does amplify the fact that we can apostatize or walk away from salvation. Now, there's a sense in which this is somewhat hypothetical. Now, I did give a biblical context, but I say hypothetical in this sense. It's hypothetical in that if you have truly tasted God's goodness, if you have been enlightened through baptism, if you have been empowered through chrismation or confirmation in the Western Church, if you have been energized through the Eucharist, if you are receiving the graces by which you are transformed from one glory to another, it seems inconceivable that you would walk away from the grace that is transforming you. And that's why I think Paul in Philippians praises God for a confidence. And it's the confidence that if you have a good work begun in you by God, God will carry on that good work to completion. So that's why I say it's somewhat hypothetical. I could not imagine walking away from the grace of God, because that grace of God has transformed me, and that grace is perpetual. And that grace is received within the community of faith. So there are a lot of people, I think, that have a form of godliness. There are a lot of Lone Ranger Christians who say, I've prayed a prayer, I now have an assurance of salvation, but all they've done is they've, in essence, bought a card that gets them to heaven and gets them out of hell, and so their faith is punctiliar. It's not a process. Biblical faith is always a process. It's growing in grace and never in isolation, always within the community of faith.
Okay. I see what you're saying. But in a hypothetical scenario, it would be true that you could commit apostasy. It's just unlikely.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I think there's biblical warrant for saying that. And I think the classic passage for this is Hebrews chapter 6.
Okay, thank you. And also, so it's hard to reconcile free will and salvation if you do believe in the assured salvation. If you believe in assurance of salvation, what kind of will then do you have if you can't lose it?
Well, our assurance in salvation, as I mentioned earlier, is given to us because God, who begins a good work in us, will carry that good work on to completion. That's what gives us assurance. And that's why we have a promise in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 that Christ will keep us strong to the end. Of course, we have to partake of the means of grace that he provides us. You also have Jude 24 guaranteeing that God is able to keep you from falling. He is able to present you before his glorious presence without fault. And my favorite of all passages is is found in the divinest composition of humankind, as it's sometimes called, the book of Ephesians, which provides, and these aren't my words, these are the words of the Apostle Paul, a surety that you are marked in him with a seal. That seal is the promised Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is a deposit guaranteeing our inheritance until the redemption of those who are God's possession.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You got it.